Welcome back to the GCSE Maths Pro YouTube channel. Today we're going to be looking at expanding double brackets. If you're looking into what the concept of expanding brackets is in the first place, make sure to check out the previous video on single brackets. We're going to jump right into the first question, which says expand and simplify x plus 2 and then x plus 7. If you've seen the first video or you're already quite happy with the concept of expanding, it basically just means multiply. So we have this imaginary multiply symbol in between the two brackets, and we need to multiply each term in the first bracket by each term in the second bracket. There's two parts to this question, as you can see. Part one is the expand, which as we said is multiply, and the second part is simplify. Okay, so we're going to have one line of working for expanding, for multiplying, and the second line of working will be then to simplify what we've got. So our first line, I'm going to start off by using the method where I just draw lines between each of the terms and I can make sure that I've got the right number of lines and I've multiplied the right number of terms, okay? That's the method I like to use because I think it's a bit faster. So we have to multiply the first term by both terms in the second bracket, okay? So the first term in the first bracket is x. I'm going to times it by then the first term in the second bracket, which obviously is also x. X times x, well, they're both positive, so we've got positive x squared. Then I move on and go, okay, let me get the same x from the first bracket and multiply it by the second term in the second bracket, which is not just 7, but positive 7, isn't it? We always have to take the symbol that's in front of the letter or the number, in this case, plus. So I've got positive x times positive 7, so it's going to be plus, and then obviously x times 7 is 7x. Now that I've multiplied the first term in the first bracket, so the x, by both terms in the second bracket, I can then move on to the second term in the first bracket, okay, which is this 2. Again, remember, it's not just 2, it is positive 2. So I'm going to do 2 times x, they're both positive, so I've got plus 2x. Then I'm going to do the second term by the second term in the second bracket, 2 times 7, again, both positive, plus 14. Now, if you like to use this method and you do it in this specific order, you should end up with something that looks a bit like a piranha, okay? So you know you've done it in the correct order. If you've got this kind of piranha shape, there should be 4 lines, as you can see, and 4 multiplications that you've done. That is the expand part. So this bit is expand. So we've done that now, we can tick that off. Now we need to simplify. Simplifying with algebra pretty much refers back to collecting like terms, which a lot of people don't really remember what we mean by that. They've kind of heard of it, but they don't really remember what that actually means. So like terms are things like, are they both x's? Are they both x squareds? Are they just whole numbers? You know, what can we combine? What can we not combine? In this case, you can see the only like terms we have are these middle two. We've got a 7x and a 2x. Those are like terms. So in this case, I can actually add them together. So my simplifying line is going to be still x squared because there aren't any other x squareds to change that. But then I've got 7x plus 2x, which is plus 9x. And finally, I've still got the plus 14 because, again, that's a whole number on its own. I don't have any other whole numbers on their own. I don't have any other like terms for the 14. So once we've simplified it, most of the time, not saying all the time, but most of the time, you're going to end up with 3 terms, okay? So you started off with 4 terms here, and now we've got 3. So that is your answer. Expand and simplify, we've got x squared plus 9x plus 14. Because we multiplied 2 of these x's together, we've ended up with a quadratic. This is a quadratic, isn't it? So you should end up with something that looks a little bit like ax squared plus bx plus c. Okay? I know it says plus, it could also obviously be minus, but this is the standard format of a quadratic. And obviously a, b, and c will be numbers depending on the question. So let's try that again. Expand and simplify x minus 12, and we know that this means multiply x plus 5. So I'm going to multiply the first term in the first bracket, which is usually an x, by the first term in the second bracket. Just put step 1. X times x, again, they're both positive, so I've got x squared. Then I do x times the second term in the second bracket, which is plus 5. So x times 5, they're both positive again, plus 5x. Now I've dealt with that first x, I can now move on to the second term in the first bracket, which is 12. However, remember, it's not just 12. It's minus 12 in this case. So I've got minus 12 multiplied by positive x. Now we know a positive times a negative gives us a negative, so you have to be really careful. Are my answers going to be negatives, positives? You know, we have to really make sure that's correct as well. So this one is minus 12 times x is just 12x. And finally, we need to do minus 12 times positive 5. Again, positive and a negative makes a negative, and 12 times 5 makes 60. So that is our expansion. We have expanded it. We've got 4 terms, and you can see we've created this banana shape as well. So we know we've done it in the correct order as well to help us with simplifying. So step 2, we now move on to simplifying. If you do it in this order, you draw the lines exactly how I've done, the 2 bits that you can simplify will always be in the middle, the 2 terms, okay? They'll always be in the middle. But be careful with this one though, because we've got plus 5x minus 12x, okay? So we're not literally just adding them together. In this case, we've got 5 minus 12. So first of all, we've obviously got x squared, that hasn't changed. And then 5 take away 12 is actually minus 7x overall. And then at the end, we got minus 60. So that's your answer there, simplified. There are other ways to expand brackets. Some people like to use the grid method. I just think this is a lot faster, a lot more efficient, and you still don't get mixed up as to what you have and haven't multiplied. Okay, so now we're just going to carry on with exactly the same process. Expand and simplify x minus 8 multiplied by x minus 9. We know there's a multiply there. I'm going to start by multiplying the first term of the first bracket, which is an x, times the first term of the second bracket. So x times x, again, same as before, x squared. They're both positive. Then we've got x times minus 9, okay? Remember, it's not just 9, it is minus 9. So positive times a negative makes a negative, and then x times 9 is 9x. Now I've dealt with the first term in the first bracket, I can now look at the second term in the second bracket. Again, remember, it's not just 8, it is minus 8. So minus 8 times positive x is going to be minus 8x. And finally, minus 8 times minus 9, we now have double negatives. Negative times a negative makes a positive, so that will be plus 8 times 9 is 72. So just be really careful with the positives and the negatives. Okay, so now we have expanded. We are now going to look at simplifying. And as I said before, if you've drawn it in the same order that I have, you'll get a little piranha. And the parts that we can simplify will just be these 2 in the middle, the 2 parts that have x's. So I've got x squared. Minus 9x minus 8x is basically like minus 9, take away another 8x. So we're going to get minus 17x, and then plus 72 at the end. We've got 3 terms left. So that is your simplify part. So it will start to become second nature the more you practice it, and you'll be able to draw the lines really quickly and just write down the answers super fast and simplify without even really thinking about it. Just be careful of what positives and negatives you have. Okay, so we're just repeating ourselves again. However, you can see this one's a little bit different because we've got a negative in front of the x, but our process will still be the same. So expand and simplify minus x plus 4 multiplied by x minus 15. So I'm going to do the first 2 terms multiplied together. So I've got minus x times positive x, which we know will be a minus x squared, okay, minus x squared. Then I've got minus x times minus 15. So 2 negatives make a positive, and then x and 15 would make 15x. Then I'm going to move down and look at the second term of the first bracket, which is 4. This one's positive. So positive 4 times x is positive 4x. And finally, positive 4 times negative 15. Positive and a negative makes a negative, and 4 times 15 will make 60. So we've expanded, now we can simplify. So step 2, simplify. Again, as I said before, if you do it in this order, you should just find that the 2 like terms, or the 2x terms, will be in the middle anyway. You can just add them together in this case. Minus x squared stays the same. 15x plus 4x is 19x, and the minus 60 is at the end. Okay, so now we have simplified as well. Okay, feel free to pause the video, give this one a go yourself. As you can see, we have got a 2x in the bracket, but just multiply it in the exact same way. Just think about how you'd normally multiply a 2x and an x together. So step 1, expand, which means multiply. I'm going to do 2x times x will give me 2x squared, and they're positive as well. Then I've got 2x times 1, again all positive, so plus 2x, just plus itself basically. Then I'll come down here and do the 3, so 3 times x, okay, both positive again, so 3x. And finally, 3 times 1 at the end, plus 3. So I've expanded. Now I'm going to simplify As I said, it will be those two in the middle if I do it in this same order and I get piranha shape. So 2x squared plus 2x plus 3x is 5x plus 3. There's your answer. Okay, so keep pausing the video, trying out these different questions and see how it goes. So 5x times 3x, well, they're both positive. Then I'm going to do 5 times 3, which is 15, and x times x, which is x squared. Then 5x times 4, again, they're both positive, so plus 4 times 5 is 20, and the x is still there. Then we have minus 9 times 3x, so that will be a negative 27x. And lastly, minus 9 times positive 4, which will be minus 36. Okay, so we've expanded. Now we're going to simplify. Just those two terms in the middle, both x terms can simplify. So 15x squared and 20x minus 27x will give me minus 7x overall, minus 36 at the end. Okay, all of these examples are now the same, we're just using different numbers and a different combination of positives and negatives. So pause the video, give this a go, and then check your answer afterwards. So I'm going to do 11x times 2x, which will give me 22x squared. 11x times minus 6 will give me minus 66x. Minus 20 times 2x will give me minus 40x. And finally, minus 20 times minus 6 will make a positive, so plus 120. We've expanded, now we're going to simplify the middle part. We've got 22x squared, minus 66x, take away another 40x will give me minus 106x, and then plus 120 at the end. So you might end up with some that do have quite big numbers, but it's still the same method, isn't it? Okay, so the second part of this topic for expanding brackets is we're going to do it in the exact same way, but I just want to really highlight a specific type of quadratic. So we've got here difference of two squares. Okay, and I'm going to show you what that means once we've expanded these brackets. So we're still going to do it in the exact same way. Expand and simplify x plus 4 times x minus 4. So exactly the same. Expand. X times x is x squared. X times minus 4 is minus 4x. And then 4 times x is going to be plus 4x. And finally, 4 times minus 4, so positive times a negative is a negative, 16. I simplify in the exact same way. I've still got my x squared, but I know that these two in the middle I'm going to add together. However, can you see that I've got minus 4x plus 4x? Well, that should cancel out. That's going to give me 0, isn't it? Okay, so those cancel out. You don't even have an x in this case. And then we still have minus 16. So actually, while I said obviously most of the time you're going to get a quadratic that looks like ax squared plus bx plus c, you might end up with a scenario where you just have ax squared minus c. In this case, it's minus. That's absolutely fine. Still quadratic. You've still expanded it specifically, but it's just called difference of two squares. And what we mean by that is, well, x squared, that's a square number, isn't it? Clearly, that's x times x. And then we've got 16. Well, we know that's a square number because we literally just did 4 times 4. And finally, difference means when you subtract, isn't it? If they say find the difference between these two numbers, you would subtract them. So the difference of two squares is this format here. Now, this will just relate to factorising, and actually it even relates to surds. It relates to a lot of other topics. It's just more so at this point that I want you to be able to recognise this format. Do you see how the brackets were identical except one was plus, one was minus? So if you have two sets of brackets where they are basically the exact same thing, except one is a plus, one's a minus, it will create this difference of two squares situation. Okay, so don't get worried if the middle bit cancels out. That can happen sometimes. So I've got a couple of examples of that here, so you can see we're going to expand this. We're still expanding and simplifying in the exact same way. That hasn't changed, has it? We're still going to multiply out the bracket. So 2x times 2x is 4x squared. 2x times 3 is plus 6x. And you can see we're going to have minus 3 times 2x, so minus 6x. And finally, minus 3 times plus 3 is minus 9. And then if I simplify that, again, I've done it in the same order, so it's the middle two that I will simplify. Obviously we've got the same thing, we've got plus 6, minus 6. Those will cancel out, make 0. And then you've got minus 9. Okay, and again, these are still square numbers, aren't they? Because 4 is a square number, x squared is a square number, and when they're together, overall that's still a square number. If you have two square numbers multiplied together, the other answer will also be a square number, basically. So this is still a square number. Obviously 9 is still a square number, and we've got the difference, which is subtract. So it's just called difference of two squares. So that is everything on expanding double brackets. If you are doing higher tier, make sure to check out the next video, which is on expanding triple brackets. However, if you're doing foundation, you can ignore this and don't worry, just leave it as it is. If you've got any questions, leave them down below in the comments. Make sure to subscribe and like the video and let me know how it was.